We get into a conversation this hour, and we're going through the country and, of course, into the rest of the region. And we're going to do that. Democracy is on trial, as it were, as what we're being told. Martha Karua is the party leader of the People's Liberation Party, and she joins us in the hot seat this morning. Martha, good morning.
Morning, dude.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Yeah. It's been some time, and it's been busy.
I'm being told that I'm back too soon.
Why?
I was here in October.
Yeah. That's 2 months ago.
Yeah.
But as we know, in the way the world flips, that things happen. A day is like daily. 1,000 days, and 1,000 days is like a day.
You're quite right.
Right. Yeah. And so things keep spinning on their head, and some of those we'll get into today. Okay. Let's start it off with Dennis, who wants to give you today's proverb.
So, proverb today comes from the continent, right? And it says, examine what is said, not who is speaking.
Again?
Examine what is said, not who is speaking. How will you interpret that?
Okay. I think the closest to that is don't shoot the messenger. Okay? So listen to the message. Yeah.
It is.
Yeah. It really is that in life. People look at who.
Who?
Indeed.
Yeah.
Not what.
Very true.
Yeah.
True.
And I think we can take a moment, even as we're talking about serious things, to say that whoever your designer is doing a fantastic job and has you looking fantastic.
Gotta give them the flowers.
Morning. My goodness. They're doing some good work there. So you look great, Martha.
You too, thanks.
As we get into this conversation, is democracy on trial in East Africa? We're coming off of October. Soon after, many things happened. Tundu Lissu still behind bars. Kizza Besigye still behind bars.
1 year later.
1 year later. Actually, a year later, just before Christmas last year, still behind bars. Tanzanians say that tomorrow is Super Tuesday, essentially, and that they're going to go back in protest. President Samia Suluhu taking a beating from the international community, but then also from within, it would appear. And folks saying that the same, if not worse, may happen in Kenya. People in Kenya talking about the possibility of things actually going south in the next 1 year. Uganda's going to the polls again. The likelihood of President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni coming back as president is high. Even at 83, the possibility of that is going to happen.
That is his age.
Okay.
It could be more.
And we're saying that the democratic space seems to be shrinking in the East Africa region. Is this true?
It is more than true. And those three countries were joined at the hip. And therefore, if you see your neighbor's house on fire, know that it could spread to yours. There was a mass murder or mass massacre in Tanzania during the general elections on 29th of October and ongoing. And there's been a purge which is ongoing, that according to sources have seen people with gunshot wounds in hospitals taken away, never to be seen again. After the mass murder, bodies disappeared, including those of Kenyans who are still looking for their loved ones. And reports that they were being shot even inside their houses. It sounded familiar. If you remember the Azimio demonstrations in 2023, you can remember that in Kisumu, it was reported in Nyalenda that the police went, and we saw the images on social media, breaking doors and beating people up in the night. And among those who were killed were two brothers. You remember in the Mathare, Kibera, other low-income areas, informal settlements in Nairobi, people were haunted, and we saw in social media people being shot in their residential areas, not outside demonstrating. So the Tanzanian thing sounded familiar. You remember the Gen Z being shot dead while waving white handkerchiefs, national flags, unarmed protesters. So Kenya does it, and I will call it mass murder in Kenya, because the moment we start counting towards 100, and with falsification of reports, in the mortuary and elsewhere, you cannot know how many, even up to this day. There were rumors of Githurai massacre and of people being put in army trucks exactly the same script was reported in Tanzania. It appears in Tanzania it was more because they talk of, there are those who say 3,000, there are those who say it could be anywhere between 8 and 10,000 people. We have seen in Uganda, at every general election violence, we are seeing people being shot in Bobi Wine's rallies, peaceful rallies, and you end up with bloodshed. 3 reported dead, so many being shot, intimidating people because they've done nothing else but to express themselves. Even in Tanzania, from the images we saw, the protests on 29th of October were peaceful. But then we saw the retaliation is violence. So it looks like the East African leaders are reading from the same script. They're in the same WhatsApp group. Cross-border abductions. Kenya becoming the East African capital of abductions. Kenya abducts its own nationals. It abducts foreigners living in Kenya, renditions them. We'll remember the Turkish four who were here legitimately as refugees. We'll remember Ethiopians. We'll remember 36 people abducted from Kisumu, members of Besige's party. We'll remember Besige, abducted last year, November 16. We will remember, I'm forgetting the name, Mwagodi, abducted from Tanzania, rendition to Kenya. We'll remember Boniface Mwangi, Agatha Atuhaire, arrested in Tanzania but dumped. Boniface in Kenya after torture, Agatha in Mutukula, Uganda after torture.
Bob Njagi, Nicholas Oyo were the latest, abducted in Uganda. They deny, they swear false affidavits in court, and later release them, and no other than the president of Uganda admits that they had them, and he says they were in the fridge because their country never asked for them. You see? And that is not all. Those are the ones we know. The others we don't know. In Kenya, as we count close to 100 dead in 2023, close to 100 or more dead in 2024, maybe over 30, 50 dead in the protests of this year, which were commemorating the deaths of the Gen Z. We'll remember so many abducted by KWS in Nakuru. We'll remember those dying in police stations. We'll remember Ojwang and many, many others. And we are saying the 3 states have gone completely rogue. And it looks like they are collaborating. They're reading from the same script. And the citizens of the Jumuiya, particularly those 3 countries, are under attack. Democracy is under attack. And it is by the people who swore by the Constitution to uphold the rights of Kenyans, of East Africans, to defend our respective constitutions and to adhere to the Treaty of East Africa, which also talks of rule of law, and to international law. So in those circumstances, I would urge citizens, it is our duty to stand in solidarity with each other, to push back, to restore the rule of law and constitutionalism in East Africa. So to our brothers in Tanzania, who are peacefully coming out tomorrow, in every nation, whether it's written in the constitution or not, it is a fact that sovereignty lies with the people. Anything done is never done in the name of the leaders. It's always in the name of the people. So, to every East African citizen, members of the Jumuiya, do remember sovereignty lies with us collectively. And that the Jumuiya anthem says, Jumuiya yetu tuilinde, tuajibike. So tunalinda Jumuiya at your respective country and across the Jumuiya. So if there is cross-border abduction, there will be citizens cross-border
solidarity.
Solidarity.
And that's why we were going to observe Tundu Lissu's case. That's why I'm in Uganda defending Besigye. Nalinda jumuiya, naajibika.
Yet, Martha, you speak of a region that is guided by the law, that operates within a treaty that is the law pretty much.
Yeah.
But you look at Kenya today and the abduction that is happening. You look at the killings that is happening in Tanzania. Look at even the threat that was given to Larry Madowo by Uganda president. We don't want you
Tanzania.
here. Uganda, Museveni said, we do not want you here. Stay away.
Okay.
And this is simply because what happened in Tanzania was given to the world for it to see. And you speak about Tanzania, there's this woman who was running and was shot at the back. And one asked the question. She was not harmed. She was just demonstrating. But
may I remind you that in Mulolongo during the Azimio demonstrations, a woman holding a baby, from school was shot. And those behind her thought she had gotten sick. And one person trying to reach out to her realized he too could not move. He had been shot in the leg.
Yes.
So this is the same script. People shot in their shops. Same in Tanzania.
And one then asks the question, the political leadership of the region have laws that protect the citizens, have treaties that they've signed for the East Africa community.
And internationally.
But these seem to be just suggestions. They can break them as they wish. Citizens are pushing back. What is the guarantee that we will get out there and not be killed?
The only guarantee we have is ourselves standing in solidarity. When East Africa and Africa was under colonial rule, and they had guns, and the citizens did not have, they only had their agency. They later replicated the guns the colonial masters had. And out of sheer resolve, determination, solidarity internally and across Africa, they were able to repulse the colonizer. Today, we have ukoloni mamboleo by people with skins that look like ours, but their spirit is extractive, is worse than that of the colonizer. They are fleecing us. They're chasing us away from our land so that in Kakamega, because gold has been found, the humanity of the people in the areas where the gold is has been forgotten. 3 were killed as they're being pushed off. The law is very clear that there has to be public participation. Yes, the law says the minerals belong to us collectively, but the law also gives us defends our human rights. There is public participation. If you're moving me, to where are you moving me? Kenya has enacted a law on how to manage minerals. Parliament forgot that in order to manage minerals, you may have to move people. There should be an elaborate law saying how compensation is given. But if there is not, we say we are part of the international community and international laws are part of us. There is the UN guidelines on how you move people, whether in relation to national resources or any sort of development. You talk to them, there must be public participation. You give compensation. There must be informed consent when they move. And the compensation is not just about the money you give them. One, that money must be adequate. Remember, they are leaving behind even sentimental things like graves.
Right.
These are where their ancestors are buried. It happened in Gishogo when I was MP towards the end, when they needed people to move for the Dhiba Dam. We held a meeting and we demanded compensation. And that was the first hefty compensation paid to the people, taking into account the UN guidelines. That was the Kibaki era. I was no longer a minister, but I was able to be a voice for my people. In Kakamega, we have also seen the same thing happening with the standard gauge railway. They didn't have to move people by force because they were paying them handsomely. Why is the same thing not happening in Kakamega? Why aren't people being offered something they cannot reject? Why don't you ensure that they have equivalency inland, in communal things like schools, like water? You've got to replicate those. Those were the considerations we were discussing when my people were moving for the Diba Dam. It should be the same. Now we have Senator Karua doing his work as he is supposed to be, and I congratulate him and ask the other leaders, where are you? His people should be treated like human beings. You cannot move people by force. You are spilling blood, and we have not even heard of compensation yet. You are in a hurry. And this gold is not being extracted for Kenya.
It's been there for 100 years, so you can wait a little longer.
And it's not for us. Because if it is for us, you can't be killing us. It's just like the housing. Look at how the Makongeni people were moved forcefully. The reports are that is so many families, almost 40,000 people. The court orders them to halt. They ignore the court order, and they have completely finished bringing down the houses. So we'll push you out anyway. The same with the people who were living on the riverine when there were floods. And the Kenya government suddenly decides that people have to stay 60 meters away. But 60 meters only in low-income areas. We have houses that are practically on the river in the posh estates, in Rwanda, in where, or along the riverine. In Lavington, we even have flats that are almost across the river, huge blocks of flats. They haven't come down, only Mathare, the poor and the defenseless.
Continue.
Economic apartheid.
This is what we're looking at, and it's interesting because these are the rights that are being fought for across board. Whether we're looking at Kenya, whether Uganda or Tanzania.
Tanzania, they moved the Maasai to give it to people, to international consortiums. And the Maasai were resisting, but they were forcefully moved.
Okay.
Uganda, about moving people, that one I do not have any case in mind. But at least Kenya and Tanzania are guilty of economic apartheid.
Whereby we are saying that these are, cousins in this holy trinity in terms of the behavior across board. It's interesting because there have been sentiment, Martha, and I'm interested to hear what your opinion and perhaps way forward through is this, that there have been sentiment that each country ought to mind their own business when it comes to things that ought to be done. There are senators in Kenya today, there are members of the East African Legislative Assembly who said, you know what, if there are issues going on in those other countries, then we should leave those countries to mind their issues. President Samia Suluhu went on to say something as serious as, we've messed up things in your own country. Don't come and do the same here in Tanzania. So there is it's not just a feeling, it's an outward expression that everybody ought to mind their own business.
How ignorant can leaders be? Whether members of the East Africa Legislative Assembly, whether a sitting president. How do you display your ignorance in public? Let's just start with the national anthem, even before you go, in the Jumuiya anthem, even before you go to the treaty. Jumuiya yetu tuilinde. And that's the refrain, so you keep on singing it after every stanza. Tuajibike, tuimarike. We have come together so that we do things together, so that we leverage on our numbers, so that we leverage on good practices across, so that we can be able. The Jumuiya was not made for leaders to maintain themselves in power. So when President Yoweri Museveni says they should form a federation army, before they form a federation army, and I tweeted that way, can we first have free movement of people and goods? I remember when I was a child, when I was a small girl, school going and knowing things, in my mother's shop, we used to receive money from all three East African countries. From Uganda, from Tanzania, people could buy because our currencies were equivalents. And we had the East Africa community then. Movement of people was totally unrestricted. But in these days of bad governance, although we have an East African treaty which is about people, about trade with each other, movement of goods, people, services, therefore I should be able to practice law in all three countries. Yeah. Other than Kenya that freely admits advocates from Uganda and Tanzania, in the other two countries, it's so difficult. You saw how I was mistreated when I applied to represent Besigye.
Yep.
I was called names and my application thrown out. It took a combined effort of the Kenya Law Society, East Africa Law Society, Uganda Law Society, and civil society in Uganda demonstrating.
Right.
For me to be let in. And the heaviest voice was the Kenya Law Society, thanks to Faith, leadership of Faith Odhiambo. Mm-hmm. They told Uganda, we are going to send home you have 500 advocates practicing here. It is not because those advocates were at fault, but it's about reciprocity. I think that's the heaviest that made them relax.
Right.
And now I'm able to go to court there. So what our leadership is doing is ignoring all aspects of Jumuiya. It's no longer about the people. It's about these three states gone rogue. It's about supporting each other in oppressing the people. Nothing else. Look at Dr. William Ruto donning a yellow suit, which is the color of his party, and which is Museveni's color of his party. The symbolism was not lost. Going to a Museveni function, because they went to launch the DevKey.
The DevKey, yes.
Whatever. We don't know what interest the two of them have in it. It's not just a trade. It looks like they could be having a stake. I say looks like. That most likely they could be having a stake. And he went there to support in full regalia. Bob Jaggi and Nicholas Oyo were still there. Nothing about them. It's about them supporting each other. This is so wrong. You cannot use the state. Use the facility which the people gave you, and you swore to defend the Constitution, which means also defending and upholding best interests of the people. These are three rogue states.
Martha, this paints a sad picture of leaders who are hell-bent on doing everything within their power to remain at the helm of the seat. That includes killing innocent civilians. That includes abducting and disappearing individuals. That means torture.
Curtailing every civil liberty.
Yes. And one asks the question, even as the political class continues to fight to control these, to be in power, it is to serve the people. Then why kill? Why torture the same people that you want to lead?
I think this is where we need to call ourselves to a small meeting as citizens. Why do you continue to listen to a leader who does not respect your life, your humanity, and even our property? Because when the leadership, we just have had by-elections here in Kenya, and we saw how violent they were. In Bere and in Malava, if I might just, and even in Kasipul, Kabondo.
Yeah.
It was total chaos. And thereafter, we have seen police tear gassing a church where the second deputy president was having a meeting. Why do you curtail civil liberties? It actually reminded me of William Ruto during the Uhuru era. They were not tear gassed in church at least, but I remembered a tour his people had. I can't remember whether he was present in Murang'a, and I remember C.S. Alice Wahome was among those people, and there were tear gas outside Keno. The same places now, the opposition is being tear gassed. Surely, if you are crying that time that you're being pushed and swearing that you'll not be doing those things, this goes to Dr. William Ruto and his brigade. Why are you repeating the same script? If that time you were crying out aloud, don't you think that the people you are doing this to are human? And to our police officers and security agencies, you know your job. Your job is to police. is to ensure there is security for everyone. Why do you create insecurity for the opposition and for the citizens? Why do you kill citizens in the name of dispersing, whether it's a protest, or whether it is a political gathering? Why don't you remember that if you bring this country down, you too will suffer? You electoral official, why do you bungle the elections? Like in Bere, why did you chase people away from a tallying center to be left alone? Why do you bring armored tanks to an election? Why do you have so much police as to intimidate all over the country? How does a hotel get destroyed, vandalized, in a place that is so militarized, there is so much police? Yeah. How do cars get banned? And you check whose car? Opposition. Whose hotel? Opposition. Yet you say you are in control. If you are in control, then tell us who banned, because it is you or your people. Yeah.
What should be the picture that's painted, and this falls right at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, what should be the picture that's painted of Kenya? You imagine that if any one of your citizens is tied up in something, that there would be an immediate response to that, whether it was outward expression or, negotiations diplomatically. We don't see that as robustly as we thought.
His PS and the entire team don't seem to get it. You are national, whether you like them or not, are the ones paying your salary. That comfortable office you sit on, that title is our title. So anybody who gets into trouble in another country is your business. And they seem to know that because they went to negotiate for the woman who was it Malaysia? Where was it?
Oh, on drugs?
Yes.
Yeah, actually, it was in Nepal, was it? No, I'm sorry. I'll get that right. Vietnam. It was Vietnam, yes.
And then they also went to negotiate in the Arab world for our son who was on the death
in Saudi Arabia, yeah.
That way, they did it the right way. Even if your citizen is wrong, you should even say, bring him, we jail him here. This is his home. We are talking of citizens who are not in the wrong. They have just gone, Bob Jage and Nicholas Oyo were exercising their rights as East Africans, visiting their brother, same way Ruto visited his brother Museveni. So why do you put them in? Don't you want other people to have friends the way you have? Why should we be deported? Because we have gone to observe a public trial. Because by the law of Tanzania, a criminal trial is a public trial. So why shouldn't we visit to observe? Why should it hurt them? Cooperation among citizens, they should be getting very happy about it, just the way they cooperate as leaders.
Right.
So we are looking at leadership that has completely disregarded the constitution of their respective countries and their laws, disregarded the East Africa Constitutive Act, and they are operating outside of the law. That's why I call them rogue states. I don't want to go beyond that. I want to leave it there. I don't want to be personal.
This paints a picture of a strong man who's really afraid. A strong woman who's really, really afraid of the citizenry who are woke, who know their rights, and who are demanding justice. Because you look at the statements that followed thereafter when Boniface Mwangi was arrested and tortured in Tanzania. And the first statement that we had from, again, Cabinet Secretary for Foreign Affairs is that they are exporting bad manners. And this was repeated even in National Assembly. And even asking the leadership in Tanzania, wafinye kabisa uwarudishe huko, and you look at again what is happening in Uganda. Citizens coming up demanding their rights to vote, that democracy is a reality again. They are beat up, they are shot at, and the same is replicated in Kenya. Speaks of a leadership that is really afraid that its citizenry finally can stand up and demand justice. You reckon?
Indeed, you got it completely right. That these people the leadership in East Africa, in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, are scared of the very citizens. And they want to behave like they are no rights, and they're telling people, you talk, we come for you. That's what they've been doing to the Gen Z. In fact, I want to remember that a year later, the Mlolongo 4, 2 turned up dead. And I apologize because I didn't remind myself of their names, because we must give people their names. They must not remain faceless.
Yes.
2 have not been seen.
Till today.
What hope do we have? What proof of life? The fact that the 2 turned up dead in mortuaries when the court was about to put the leadership of the police on the dock, when their colleagues who were alive were being dumped in various places in Kenya, 2 turned up dead in mortuaries. So the authorities must tell us where the other 2 are. We must remember that our courts also stand indicted. Not all of them. Some of them are doing very well. Why would a court keep the case of people who are missing for a year? These cases were filed December last year. What is the leadership of the judiciary doing about this? What are we telling the state when cases of habeas corpus are not heard a whole year? Why do we believe statements we know, any reasonable person would think are false? Because how come people pop up either on the day or just at the night before the police seniors are going to be put on the dock? What is the reasonable deduction?
And those questions must be asked. And even
we
as
ask them in court.
Yeah. And even as we do that, we're looking at an election vortex in the country at the moment. Tanzania just came out of it. Uganda's going into it. And in another year, Kenya will be going into it. I mean, we're likely to see heavy electioneering and campaigning come 2026, just in a few weeks going forward. And we've come off of a by-election, which for all intents and purposes in Kenya was, you would think it was a general election. And there were many things that were seen. I mean, having been involved in many an election yourself, Martha, and then sitting at a place whereby you guided justice and constitutional affairs for some time, and then looking at what is currently constituted as an IEBC, speaking fairly, speaking objectively, what have we seen from your point of view that could point to what could happen in the future?
We have seen total incompetence by the IEBC. The way they responded to the threat to violence just before the elections, fining parties $1 million each, which they can afford. That is telling them carry on. And they indeed carried on until it got very ugly. You must find who is at fault. The moment they'll bar a candidate rightly, or a party, find both the candidate and the party and warn them that next time is exclusion from the elections. They have teeth, they refuse to bite. On election day, the police who are in the precincts of polling stations are under the returning officer or presiding officer of that polling station. So when violence happens and agents are either blocked or candidates are blocked from coming to see what is happening, the IBC is complicit. And that is why, Mr. Ekathon, we are calling you and your team incompetent. We didn't see you using the tools at hand. If you can't manage a mini election, how will you manage the general elections? We'll be visiting you in your offices to tell you this to your face, because this is a feedback, honest feedback from citizens that you have displayed incompetence. How will you then convince Kenyans that you can handle general elections? Remember, you may have been appointed by Ruto, but he didn't appoint you to his family enterprise. He appointed you on a seat where we, the public, are paying you. You are our employee. Listen to us and read the Constitution. Acquaint yourself with what your job should be.
How would you read the electoral agencies in the region? Look at the INEC in Tanzania. You go to Uganda. Goodness. You come to Kenya.
They act at the behest of the leadership. Exactly. Look at Uganda. Have you heard any statement? Uganda has been quite funny because in certain seats, they have disqualified everybody else just to leave Museveni's candidates. In Tanzania, they actually barred Chadema, the main challenger. Suluhu went to the elections against her own shadow. And Suluhu versus Hassan, she got 98%, where the voters were on the streets, not in the polling stations. Perhaps the security agencies could have voted, and that's the 98%. And you look at Kenya. Kenya, there was a contest, and they come up with 50-50, one just passing the other slightly. After so much money, so much intimidation. Is that something to gloat about? Let's assume those votes were okay.
Yeah.
Is it a clear win, a decisive win? No, it isn't. To the citizens of all three East African countries, and especially my fellow Kenyans, don't lose hope. It looks like the nation is tilted towards one term. But we must check our failures as the opposition. What could we have done better in a bad situation to make sure that our win does not go away, that our win persists? Those are the lessons we must learn. And as citizens, we know life is hard. We know the cost of living has gone up. Joblessness is at an all-time high. We know people are not assured of their daily meals. But what I would say is that on the day of election, the hunger of one day will not kill you. Do not take money. Not on the day of elections, make it a special day. I will not talk about what you do other days. But on the day of elections, let it be clear that a majority of people won't change. And if you get anybody distributing money, chase them away. And if that money drops, let the person go without it. You know?
Do you think, Martha, even these things that you're saying, that is Kenya ready for those discussions, not just the discussions, but the movement? Here we are, because I tried to think about this, and even conversations that we've had over the last week, and even the last few years, that it is the modus operandi for people to take money around election times and even other times, whereby they want to feed a need of the day.
Yeah.
Because the need exists. We can call it whatever.
And it's acute.
It is. It exists. But then we've also been told that there are people who take money even if they do have food in their homes. They're not hungry on that day.
It's a culture.
But they still take the money. Exactly.
It's a culture.
So how do you break culture and tradition? And that's my question. That is Kenya ready for that position whereby you say, I am going to hold you accountable for the work that you will do if I give you my vote? And I'm not going to give you my vote based on something that you put in my hand on the day that you are asking for it. Are we ready to make that move, that transition?
I'll answer it with a question. Are we ready? Are you and me ready to hold that conversation? Because people talk of civic education. They do not see themselves as the prime movers of that education or engagement. They see the next person. Every Kenyan who is aware must lead civic engagement in their sphere of influence. You have your family members. You have your friends. You have your chama members. Can each one of us spearhead that conversation? That how shall we deliver and safeguard our votes? Because we all have a duty. Zote tulinde katiba na tuajibike. If I may repeat the words of the Jumuiya National Anthem, but you now actualize them in your own area. And by the way, Article 2 of our Constitution says that we all have a duty to uphold and defend the Constitution. So even that anthem is derived from our laws. So it is your duty, you and me, to uphold and defend the Constitution. How do you defend it? By making sure that the areas of influence you command act in accordance. So let every Kenyan, every knowledgeable Kenyan, and take civic engagement. I will not call it education, all of us have an inherent moral compass we come with from the factory. There's something that tells you when you're about to tip over. And that small voice inside you will be telling you, no. Another one, just go on. So we all know when we are doing something wrong. So know that when you help violate the electoral code, whether you are a clerk, a presiding officer, or a returning officer, you are messing your own country. When our money is abused and there is no medicine in the hospitals, even if you're a big boss who can afford private health, you might have an emergency next to a public facility in the rural area. We had a plane crash in Busia.
Yeah.
If there was no first aid in Busia, even with the planes being sent from Nairobi to collect us, we would have reached Nairobi dead. So what saved me on the crash is not the hospital I was brought to in Nairobi, is the first aid I received in Busia.
Right, yeah.
So you do not know when you will require services. It is in our best interest to safeguard our resources, ensure they work for us, so that every part of Kenya is as nearly as possible like the other. It cannot happen when we are stealing and encouraging theft of our money. When we receive from politicians what we know is not from their pocket, we are encouraging theft of our resources. So how do we safeguard
Yes, exactly.
our common good, including our resources? Please start that conversation where you are. Don't give up. Dictatorship and authoritarianism have never won in the world. The question is not if, it is when and how they get out.
You speak of corruption, and most of the time we hear in these campaign trails on how kula pesa lakini unajua kura unaweka wapi. Perhaps it's a conversation as well that the political class needs to call out and ensure that citizens do not partake in this bribery. But then again, if you just pause and look at what happened during the election. So we have the EACC, a body that is supposed to give its recommendations and its report on the individuals that are running for office. Here we have an individual who has question marks on their background. But then again, you find that they're being cleared. They're running for elections. We ask IEBC, they are not aware. And one asks the question, when you speak of multi-agency approach to ensure that the elections are free, credible, and fair, how is that when an individual who's running for office has question marks?
The question is, multi-agency, who are they working for? When do we see these agencies coming into action? Like the National Cohesion and Integration Commission, which is tone deaf when operatives in government are speaking, but will have microscopic hearing potential when it is people from the opposition. And sometimes you see the the Anti-Corruption Commission acting the same way. You see the prosecution, even withdrawal of charges of the politically correct, and persecution of those who are not. So which agency can stand up and be counted? I'm reminding those who man and woman these agencies that you work for the people of Kenya, and that we as citizens, including those working in places of influence, we have our own agency as individuals. And we are under our constitutional duty to uphold and defend our constitution. Remember that. And remember, if you foul, it will come back to you. We have a saying in my language, you do good unto yourself. You do bad, you do it unto yourself. So that hospital, whose money you have presided over theft and corruption, you may yourself die of an emergency in that hospital away from your comfort zone. If not you, it will be somebody dear to you. Those roads we are refusing to do because of corruption, or we are unable to do because of corruption. You might yourself be a victim of a road accident. We all live in Kenya. Our fate is intertwined. It is in our best interests to safeguard our resources, because when the public services are good, all of us can partake. And those who have an option will then have more than one option. You will have your preferred option, but if it fails, you still can enjoy the public. The same with education. Because we are then, when we don't give quality services, the access is removed from a majority who are not able to go to the alternative.
Sure.
So why can't we do something for our country? To those in leadership, you go to stash our money in Dubai and other places. Dubai, it is the leadership who delivered to have a Dubai like the one you see. It was just a desert the other day, which nobody would have loved to go to. Now it's a preferred destination. Those countries in Europe where you're hiding your money. There were countries in the last century where people were dying of disease and hunger. The most famous being the potato famine in
Right.
England.
Yeah.
And they had all manner of pestilence because they were unhygienic. Look at where they are. Their nationals sat together, the leadership, rolled up their sleeves and said, for God and my country, we'll do this. They didn't think about getting rich. They thought about the country collectively moving forward. That is servant leadership. When shall those in leadership remember that they're there to serve, not to lie in their pockets, not to lead comfortable lives?
And if they don't remember this?
We remove them. That's why we are having this conversation, that it is your duty, my duty. Let us get ready to help ourselves. In the People's Liberation Party, we say unite, liberate. We recognize unity of purpose, solidarity is completely necessary. It's not an option. It is an imperative so that we can liberate yourself. No one person will liberate this country. It is us together. So can we act together deliberately? The way we did in 2002, we voted, we guarded the vote. Do not agree to be deceived by anybody in authority that when you vote, you go home.
Indeed.
Stay around the polling station. You cannot stay inside the classroom, but you can stay 20 meters, meaning you are still within the school, so that they know the people are there to watch their vote. And let us aggregate the votes as soon as they are known. Do not wait for the returning officer in the constituency office. Aggregate the vote and shout your vote. Let's stop them from manipulating. It's manipulated during tallying. Because in Kenya, voting has been done. It is the tallying that is the problem. It is the bribery that is the problem. It is the denial of access to agents. These are the things we are going to sit across the table with those, however much we think they are not suitable. We must build their capacity just in case that they're the ones who will be there. So Ekathon and team, I'll be knocking on your door soon so that we can have civic engagement. I bet you cannot educate or give civic engagement, good and healthy civic engagement to Kenyans when you yourself are not empowered. The next footsteps you hear is me arriving in your office.
She said it. And she's the party leader of the People's Liberation Party, Martha Karua, and many things that we've been able to go through this morning. But I guess the next step is a visit, which we'll all see, of course, and that we continue to engage in this discourse. Thank you for being here this morning for us to be able to do that. And we look forward to the next because they must be regular.
Asante sana. Just to remind everybody, our country, our region is in our hands. Let's wake up and do something. Have a blessed festive season. And remember, Martha Karua will be asking for your vote to be president of this republic. I describe myself as the standing president. William Ruto may be the sitting one. I'm the standing one, waiting for that seat.
There you go.
Courtesy of the people.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.